Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to Answering Bart Ehrman, the channel where we read our way through his book, Jesus Interrupted, and answer it page by page. But before we look at page 42 today, I've got a special announcement, and that is my brother Matthew, who I work with on this channel, has just finished his PhD in history. And
Yes.
now has been awarded his doctorate in history. So congratulations, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's well done. A lot of hard work there. So good on you for doing that. Do you want to take us away? We're on page 42.
Yeah. So we're up to a section where it's the last of several examples Ehrman gives of alleged discrepancies in the Gospels. Just gives a random spray of examples here. And this one is how long did Jesus' ministry last? So I'll read that and we'll have a comment on it. It says, our earliest Gospel, Mark, does not give an explicit indication of the length of Jesus' public ministry, but it does give some suggestive comments. At the beginning of Jesus' ministry in chapter 2, his disciples are going through the wheat fields and eating the grain to the consternation of the Pharisees, who believe they are violating the Sabbath. This must be taking place then in the fall at the time of the harvest. After this point, the action moves very quickly. One of Mark's favorite words is euthus, immediately. Immediately Jesus did this, immediately he did that, and so on. By chapter 11, after lots of immediatelys, we come to the last week of Jesus' life at the Passover feast in Jerusalem. Passover is in the spring, so the distinct impression is that the ministry has lasted a few months from harvest time to spring. A few months? Doesn't everyone know that Jesus' ministry lasted 3 years? Well, actually, the idea that it lasted 3 years comes not from the Synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, but from the last Gospel, John. On 3 separate occasions, John refers to different Passover celebrations, and since they were a year apart, that would seem to indicate that the ministry must have lasted at least over 2 years, rounded up to 3. But which is it? I would say this is not technically a discrepancy, but it's hard to know what to make of all of Mark's immediatelys if he didn't really mean them.
Okay. So his problem is with this word immediately. So let's not misrepresent Bart Ehrman. He's saying that one of the characteristics of the gospel, according to Mark, is that he talks about immediately Jesus did this, immediately Jesus did that. And so there's this time marker.
Definitely the fast-paced gospel, really. It's the shortest one, and it's got a real narrative momentum about it, which he's pointing to here, which is legitimate. Yeah.
And so I guess there's 2 sentences I want to bring up. He says, by chapter 11 of Mark, after lots of immediatelys, we come to the last week of Jesus' life. So what he's saying is that you've got in the gospel, there's, immediately this, immediately that, immediately this. And so he's saying, if you look at all these immediatelys, it's telling you what happened one after another. And then it goes from, from the harvest time through till the Passover, and we know how far that is, and so it seems to be only a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All right. Well, but then he says, but in John's Gospel, we know that it went for about 3 years.
Yeah. Nobody really disputes that.
Yeah. So that is his argument, and he says, but which is it? I would say this is not technically a discrepancy, but it's hard to know what to make of all of Mark's immediatelys if he didn't really mean them. So that's his argument. Well, let's see. I guess what I want to say here is that Bart Ehrman is misrepresenting the Synoptic Gospels. He's misrepresenting Mark when he says that it's immediately, all the way through. It just simply isn't that. It simply isn't that. What you have is summary statements after a series of immediatelys. So in Mark chapter 1, we get this summary statement where it's been saying immediately Jesus did this, immediately he did that, and then it gives a summary. So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. And so this is a break. to the narrative where he gives a summary statement saying this is the character of what Jesus was doing.
It doesn't say how long that lasted, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't say how long it lasted. And we see this again in Mark chapter 6, verse 56. And wherever he came, in villages, cities, or countryside, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and implored him that they might touch even the fringe of his garment. And as many as touched it were made well. So again, it's another summary statement about the character of what Jesus was doing. And so in Mark and in Matthew as well, it'll say Jesus did this, he did that, and immediately he did this. And then it gives there's these summary statements where it says, this is the character of what he was doing. So
this is undetermined length of time at which he was touring villages and cities and the like, and doing his preaching and his miracles and that kind of thing. And it breaks down the whole argument. It is true that there's lots of immediatelys in Mark, and it gives a fast-paced narrative of things one after another. But there's also, there's pauses. There's periods of time that we don't know how long they went, just on the basis of Mark alone.
I think one of the most famous ones. I think one of the most famous ones probably comes from Matthew 9:35. And Jesus went through all their cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. And so, how long did that go on for? Well, it's not trying to make that point, is it? It's just saying this is the character of his ministry. And so it's not trying to give you that timeline in the way that Bart is asking it to do.
Yeah. And to be fair to him, it is a strange objection to put in here, I think. I mean, he does say it's an impression. What does he say? This is not technically a discrepancy, which is kind of a funny thing to kind of admit. Like, I don't know why he's even bothered giving this example, given that he admits it's not strong. And as you've just shown, there's these sort of summaries of periods of time that we don't know how long they lasted, that he was doing various things that kind of completely undermines the point he's just made.
Yes.
And so why is this in the book? I don't know. It doesn't actually contribute to his argument at all. And it seems like he's kind of clutching at straws to use this as an example, to me at least. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we'll probably finish up there, I think. There's other points we could make there, but I don't think we need to do any more. But basically, Matthew, Mark, and Luke have these summary statements of indeterminate periods of time. You simply can't reconstruct the total length of time that Jesus was doing things from them, because they're not trying to do that. John does give that information. Okay, there's no problem here at all. There's no problem. Yeah. So we'll see you next week. So please subscribe to the channel. And please go back and watch the earlier episodes and see how we've worked our way through the previous pages of this book. And we will see you next week.